Whenever Yaakov David is here, we live stream it. Otherwise, forget it.
Right now, we're just recording to YouTube. We could have done like Twitch and all that, but
right now, one thing at a time. We're going to start our Gemara. We need you to do the phone thing, right? To get our people started, and let's go. So yesterday we got up to the fact that you have to say. Normally, you have to say a blessing in the beginning and in the end of every blessing. Now, that sounds a little bit redundant, no? We are in Kuf Hey Omud Aleph.
It's the very top?
The very top.
Oh, so you guys aren't that far ahead of us.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay? Anyways, we pretty much concluded that Havdalah is similar to that of the Birchas HaMitzvahs, which is complete acknowledging God's greatness and His holiness, etc. Yeah? Good? Makes sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. Makes sense. Not much more to say. We're now going to tell you a story which we're going to use to analyze some other facts, right? So first we're going to tell you the story, and then we're going to analyze the story to try to determine some facts. Now, it is seemingly not relevant to what we discussed before, but it is kind of its own conversation, but you're going to see that it is on topic, all right? When was the last time you learned Gamara? Last year. Good. So you're familiar with a little bit with how it works.
I went to the beginning.
Oh, that's why we went to the end, because we knew that we wanted to give you something new to learn. You didn't know we planned the whole square around you. Good. Where are we? Rabbi Hananya ben Bar Shalemya, the Talmidei the Rav, have a Yosvu b'Seudasa. Right? There was a group of people sitting together in a meal. And as we spoke about yesterday, that we learn a lot out of what goes on in meals or in meetings between rabbis, because the great sages were people who they practice what they preached. You know, people say practice what they preach. Do you practice what you preach?
Try my best.
You try your best. However, you don't always succeed in practicing what you preach. Is that truth?
That's why I'm not written in the Gemara.
That's why you don't yet deserve to be written in the Gemara. Correct. Right? Because any rabbi, any sage that's quoted in the Gemara, they have to practice what they preach, which means that from their practice, they're so perfect in practicing what they preach that from their practice, we determine what they actually hold. Right? Good. So this group of people were sitting there in their seudah eating a meal. And grandfather Rav Havnuna, which is literally grandfather Rav Havnuna. Sometimes they call him grandfather, not necessarily because they were literally their grandfather. Sometimes he was just an elder person who they chose to call grandfather as a way of, but it's also like a way of respecting the fact that here's an older person that, etc. Right? Good. Amrulay, they told Rav Havnuna Saba, who was servicing the meal, they said, Zil Chazi, I Mekadish Yoimo, go see if the day has gone down, which means, in other words, go see if it already became night. Where am I? Now you're asking the question. Amrulay, they said to him, no, that's the next word, Amrulay, Zil Chazi imekadish yoima, go see if the day has waned. In other words, they were eating a meal on Friday afternoon, and as soon as it becomes dark, what happens? What happens on Friday when it gets dark? Shabbos. And since it's Shabbos, once it gets dark, So they wanted to know if it gets dark, why? What would be the difference if it was Shabbos or not? You need to make Kiddush. Yeah, that's exactly what they said. You see, you didn't even learn the Gemara, you already know what's going on. Yeah, go see if the day waned, and if it is, nafsik, v'nikbe'e l'shabbata. We're going to stop and then establish it for Shabbos. In other words, really what we're trying to say is that they were going to stop the meal. The very fact they're going to stop the meal for a little bit, take a break, and then continue is basically their way of saying that the meal from now on is going to be a Shabbos meal. In other words, it seems to these sages that if they would just continue the meal from Friday without making a clear, definitive break, it would seem as if they're just continuing the Friday meal, and therefore they would not fulfill the mitzvah of doing a Shabbos meal. That's what it seems to. As I say very often from statements, every statement and every question has some unwritten assumption, right? There's like assumption behind these statements, right? So this very fact that they say it, you need to figure out what they assume, which is actually very important in Talmudic study. When you're studying the Talmud, it is vital that you must try to see what a statement's implications are, and by the way, even a question. We had a discussion a few times in this class about specifically the media. When they ask a question, very often the question itself implies something. Right? So sometimes the media goes and they ask somebody a question, and then Trump says, "It's not a fair question." And then everybody's like, "It's just a question." Right? But that's not true. It's not just a question, because every question is built on an assumption. And by the way, very often a statement is built on an assumption, right? If I say, "Why are you late?" What does that assume? That you were late. It also assumes that you should have been there on time, right? Now, if I answer the question, "Why am I late?" because I had traffic outside, I'm pretty much admitting to the fact that I meant to be here and that I'm late, right? So again, here we have a situation where they tell Rav Hamnuna Saba to do something, but based on their statement, we have to understand what is the assumptions, because when you understand what's the assumptions, it will enable you to understand the rest of the Gemara. Because the Gemara, unlike English literature, where they tell you every detail of what you need to know, here we do not do that. Right? Very often we're expecting you to figure out assumptions. Yeah? So what's the assumption again? What's the assumption?
That we're going into Shabbos.
The assumption is that if you are eating a meal from Friday and it goes into Shabbos and you don't make any symbolism to show that the meal is for Shabbos, then you are not eating a Shabbos meal, you're eating a Friday meal, even though you're eating it on Shabbos. However, Rav Hamnuna Saba, even though he was servicing them, he was maybe their butler. However, he was a genius of Torah scholars, and that's why he's mentioned by name. As I told you, when you read Rav Hamnuna, the second somebody's called a rabbi in the Talmud, these guys were brilliant, these guys were perfect, and they knew immense amount of Torah, right? So the very fact that he's called Rav Hamnuna means that he was a smart guy and he knew what's going on. And he actually looked back. Amar Lahu, he said to them, Lo yitzrichisu. You do not need to do something specific to establish a Shabbat meal. Shabbos kovo nafsho. Shabbos establishes itself. You know what that means? Shabbos establishes itself? It means that the very fact that Shabbos came in and you're eating food means that that's a Shabbos meal. You don't need to do anything to make it a Shabbos meal. You just have to sit there and eat. And Shabbos itself makes that into a Shabbos meal. When I was a shliach in New Zealand, I think I told you that story, but I don't know if they heard it. Reuven probably heard it because I probably said it 5 times. He's here for years already. How many years are you here for already? 2 years already? Anyways, when I was in New Zealand, I once invited this person, a Jew who lived in town, and he comes to my house for Shabbos, and we're sitting, eating, and talking, and he was a staunch atheist. And he tells me, Rabbi, I am proud to say that I've never done a mitzvah in my life. And I looked him straight back in the face and I said, I hate to break it to you, but that's not true. He says, what do you mean? What do you mean? What type of mitzvah have I done? I said, you just ate in my house on Shabbos. That is a mitzvah, right? And you've done it. Too late. He was very angry at me. He was like I tricked him. I tricked him into doing a mitzvah, you know? Guy, it's very hard to trick a guy into wrapping tefillin. You ever try to trick a guy to wrap? It doesn't work.
But if he eats any meal on any Shabbos,
Yeah.
it's the same mitzvah.
Correct. Anytime he ate a meal on Shabbos, according to what we're saying here in the Gamara, anytime he ate a meal on Shabbos and enjoyed himself, meaning it can't be like food that he doesn't like, he actually did a mitzvah. Yeah.
I disagree with that.
You disagree with what?
The principle of that, if it was Shabbos and Shabbos came in and you ate,
Yeah.
then you're holding like Shabbos, having Shabbos. I feel like you need the intent to have like.
Well, guess what? There's at least one sage that argues with you right here in the Gemara. He says Shabbos establishes itself. You're eating on Shabbos. You did a mitzvah. That Shabbos establishes itself. Well, let's see. We'll go further in the Gemara. We'll see if anybody agrees with you. You don't need any intention. As a matter of fact, it says that Jews are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is full of seeds. And you'll ask, what are you talking about? This guy is completely not religious. He's an atheist. The fact is, he doesn't even realize how many mitzvahs he's actually done. Yeah, 100%. Even George Soros, if he's Jewish. I know that the conspiracy theories. Officially, he says he's Jewish, and I'm not going to challenge his claim. He's like this. How do you know that? Were you in the Holocaust? Do you know where he just? How do you know that? You were there. How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? Just because he gives money to a bunch of leftist organizations doesn't mean that he's a Nazi. Okay. Word on the street. I could tell you a lot of words on the streets that aren't true. All right. Anyways, very important over here is that Shabbos. Rav Hamnuna Saba says Shabbos itself makes the meal holy, whether or not you intend it to be holy. Shabbos has this power; it makes you eating holy food. That's it. Wow. Yeah. The very fact, that's what we were just talking about. The very fact that a Jew ate a meal on Shabbos and enjoyed it and had enjoyment on Shabbos from the meal, whether he knew it was Shabbos, whether he knew that there's even a concept of Shabbos, whether he knew there was a concept of Shabbos and deliberately break Shabbos, the only way for him not to do this mitzvah would be to starve from Friday night to Saturday night every single, that would be a dedicated shake. That would be a dedicated shagitz, right? A dedicated. He's so dedicated. He's like, I'm not eating. Huh? First of all, Lechem Mishnah is symbolic. It's something that no, there's no mitzvah to have Lechem Mishnah. It's perhaps you might say it's a rabbinic obligation. Perhaps we have to look exactly what category it falls into. But it's symbolic of the fact that we had the mun, we got double portion mun on Friday versus Shabbos. Yeah. You're supposed to say Amoitzi on Lechem Mishnah. There's actually some opinions that say if you mamish doesn't have Lechem Mishnah, you take whatever bread you have, you split it into two, and you make a bread. I have Lechem Mishnah. Yeah. Good. Let's continue. Anyways, weiter gegangen. Where are we? Good question. I'm not sure. You'd have to look it up. Right? Good. That's a very interesting lesson we have over here. Okay, let's continue. So, Rav Hamnuna says Shabbos establishes the meal itself. You don't need to do anything symbolic to make a Friday meal into a Shabbos meal. You don't need to do anything. That's what he says. Let's continue. The Omar Rav, and he's quoting Rav Hamnuna Saba's quoting Rav, and he says, Shabbos kivas l'maiser. Just like Shabbos establishes for Meiser, Kach Shabbos kivas l'kiddush, so too Shabbos establishes for Kiddush. Yeah. Now, what on earth are we talking about here? So first of all, somebody asked me yesterday, I had trouble understanding this, but we are biblically obligated to tithe all produce that grows in the land of Israel. Till today, you'll go to a store in Israel, and many stores will have a kosher symbol on the vegetable aisle. You go in America, you never see kosher symbols on the vegetable aisle. And as a matter of fact, many Jews will go to a non-Jewish store and buy fruits and vegetables without any kosher symbol. Fish depends if it still has its skin on it and there's still scales attached to the fish, then you are allowed to buy it from a goy. There's certain depends. It depends who you ask. As a matter of fact, when I was in New Zealand, I had a lot of trouble getting food from Australia and different places. And I spoke to a rabbi, and he, according to the rabbi that I spoke to, Chabad rabbi, he told me that I can buy any fish that had scales on it. I can buy it, even if it was cut, and I should just wash it off. There might be a little, if you want to be a little bit strict, you can slice a little bit, clip it. You do a thin slice where the original slice was. But even then, you don't have to.
What's the aiming with fish like still being alive? Like I went to that fish store next door, and
Yeah.
the fish is just still alive on the ice.
How is a fish alive on ice?
Now, like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
you ever seen that?
No, I've never seen on ice. I've never seen a fish.
Like in the slime.
Maybe they literally just took it out and put it on there. No, sometimes they keep the fish alive in like these little, tanks, and maybe the guy took it out from the tank and put it on the ice.
Some fishes like that, they're bagging it up and selling it with fish constantly.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, he probably has a tank there. A lot of them have tanks.
They're not supposed to like humanely kill it before they.
No, you don't have to kill. You don't. That's actually fish is you do not have to kill a fish before you sell it. You do not even. I don't even think you need to kill a fish before you eat it. I believe so. It's not really even minachai because the fish, once it goes out of water, it's done. I believe so. We have to check it up. Don't quote me on this, please. But yeah. Yeah. You ever heard the story of the talking fish? Yeah. What's the story of the talking fish? No, there was a story of the talking fish. You never heard the story. You never heard the story of the talking fish? Maybe you should listen closely. Maybe the fish on the ice that was mouth was moving, was trying to talk to you. Yeah. In Muncie, I think it was in Muncie, New York, where there was once a fish store, and the fish started talking. Yeah, he said he's a soul from a particular individual, and that he came into the fish because he had to have some type of tikkun. He had to fix some problem that he made in this world, so he had to come into the fish. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They brought in the Kabbalists and everything, the whole thing. Yeah. Maybe could be. Anyways, so maybe this fish in the store that you saw was trying to talk to you.
Trying to talk to you. I was listening. I wasn't paying attention. And I had to come back as another fish and do it all for somebody here.
Yeah, it is a joke. No. No, the joke is that he didn't have to come back. We don't want the man to come back. It's painful. It's painful for the soul to have to come. You want to live in a fish? No. I wouldn't want to go into the fish. All right, let's continue. Yeah. Where are we? Oh. Where are we?
Yeah, so Shabbos takes in itself. Gamara, Pesachim, Shabbos,
Where are we?
Last word was
Oh, so we got lost. We got lost as follows. Meiser, we need to tithe our fruit. We need to get 10% of our fruit in Israel to Meiser. Right? We have to do Truma in Israel. And there's a whole thing that needs to be done. Now, Truma and Meiser, you're not obligated to tithe until the produce is somewhat ready to use. Okay? Now, how do you determine if produce is ready to use? You squish it. You squish it. Yeah.
Depends on the produce.
yeah, color of it.
You gotta cut it open sometimes.
The answer is it depends what you've done with it. For example, if you have wheat and it's still in its kernels, then it's not going to be ready to eat. You need to smash it. You need to grind it. There's a lot of things you need to do before grain is ready to use. Okay? Now, I'm not going to get into the details of how we determine whether a produce is ready to use or not. However, one of the ways of determining that it's ready to use is that if you establish a meal on it, which means you make a meal where you wash, you say al netilas yadoyim, you wash your hands, you say al netilas yadoyim, and you make it into a meal. Now, if you make it into a meal, then what happens? Now, the very fact that you're eating an established meal with this food, that proves that this food is ready to eat. And if you establish a meal with this food, you are now obligated to tithe whatever produce you brought into the meal. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah? Excuse me. Yeah? Why you have your phone on in the middle of my class?
I was listening to this guy saying that don't you dare say nothing.
Who said that? Who is this?
He goes, any old croak who wants to see
Oh, this is Rabbi Paltiel. He's
it's next level.
he's very passionate.
Very bad.
I was actually in his class in 10th grade.
Really?
Yeah. See, look at him. He's emotionally. How should I say it? He's emotionally charged. He's emotionally charged. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, Kenai Nohara. That's actually, if you ask me, I think it was his. He really is the one that got me excited about Chassidus. Why? Not necessarily the content that he taught. Like he taught the same content as everybody else. But the fact that he was like, like he put so much energy and excitement, so much energy, excitement, and passion into it that you're like, I want a little bit of what he's having, Huh? Yeah. That's now you know where it comes from. No, I got it from him. He got it from somewhere else. No, I said I was a student. This guy, what do you think? I was a student. He was my teacher.
Oh, really?
Yes. What do you think? I'm as old as him. Look at them guy. He has a full white beard. I only have a half white beard. I was in his class. Yes, he was my teacher. He was younger. He was young. I mean, he was probably. No, let's see. He's probably 15 years older than me. He's probably like 55 right now. I'm guessing approximately 55. Guessing. Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah.
Now, what Rav says is, let me just retract a little bit. Once you establish meal on food, the very fact that you established a meal proves that the food is ready for use, and therefore you must tithe that produce. If you are eating just a little snack here and there, you're walking in the street and you decide to chew on a raw grain, right? By the way, people do it. Right? They take a raw grain, they stick it in their mouth, they're chewing on a raw grain. If you choose to chew on a raw grain randomly, and it's just like, I don't know, I'm chewing, even if you swallow it. I swallowed it, I take another one, right? But that's called like eating a snack. It's called arai. Could you know that word, arai? What's arai? Arai, what does it mean? It's like temporary. We use this word throughout the Gamara. It's something temporary, something not established, something not so valuable. Arai. Arai. Now, arai, if you're eating food arai, which means like temporarily, like a little snack here and there, it's not going to make it required to tithe. Only once you eat like a meal, you sit down with a bowl of cholent and there's inside of it, there's barley. That's already making it into a meal. That proves that the barley is ready for use. Next level, right? Now, Rav says that if you snack on a food on Shabbos, then the game changes. The game is completely different. Because if you snack on food of Shabbos, Shabbos establishes that to be like an established meal, and it's not considered a temporary snack. Why? Because Shabbos has this power. The Rashbam says that on Shabbos it is a mitzvah to eat, and it's a mitzvah to enjoy yourself. And because it's a mitzvah to eat, even if you're eating a snack, you're doing a mitzvah. And once you're doing a mitzvah, that shows that this gives it a level of establishment. Okay? When I'm in the middle of the week, I don't have to eat a snack. If I want to eat a snack, I eat a snack. If I don't want to eat a snack, I don't eat a snack. Right? Yeah? Good. So during the week when there's no mitzvah, so a snack is like this temporary thing. But on Shabbos, because eating a snack is in fact a form of doing a mitzvah, that mitzvah itself establishes it. And therefore, Shabbos has this power to take something that might seem temporary and make it into something established. And Rav Hamnuna learned out from there that the same thing, if you're eating a meal on Friday and Shabbos starts, the very fact that you're eating during Shabbos makes it into a Shabbos meal. You don't need to intend it. Why? Because the fact that you're doing a mitzvah, I don't care if you intended to do it or not. Right? By the way, there's a whole machlokes whether a mitzvah requires intent or not. Right? Could be you're doing a mitzvah. If you're doing something good, is it less good if you didn't intend to do it? So there's certain mitzvahs, the whole mitzvah is about intent, and therefore it could be. But generally, there is an opinion that every mitzvah needs intent. The generally accepted opinion is a mitzvah does not need intent. Right? Correct. Yeah. Now, think about it. If you're doing something good, okay? I know some people online are like, they don't know what I'm talking about. They think I'm just talking at China. But if you're doing something good, is it less good if you didn't intend to do something good? Right?
I think it is.
Why? Why is it less? Why is it less good if you didn't intend it?
It's everything. Think about if somebody think about the other side of it. If you do something bad.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between negligent homicide and murder. The difference between that is intent.
Correct. But again, the reason you're talking about criminal thing, because when you're punishing a criminal, why are you punishing the criminal? You're punishing them not because it's not a form of revenge. Unfortunately, some people get confused and they think that if somebody does a crime, they say, you did the crime, you do the time, right? So why? Just because you did a crime, you need to do time? Why not? What's the point? What, it's like revenge? Some people think, yeah, it's like revenge. You did something bad, I have to punch you back. That's not why we punish people. It's actually that's not a humane way of looking at punishment. Punishment is actually a way of preventing this from happening again. Now, if everybody knows that you could kill somebody and you get away with it, people will kill again. If people know that if a person kills somebody, then they're gonna get killed, right? But what happens if a person kills unintentionally, and then you now punish them, right? Will that prevent somebody else from killing unintentional? Not necessarily. Now, if it's negligent, you do want to punish them in order to prevent negligence, right? But you don't need to punish negligence as much as you do on something intentional, right? So that's why negligent homicide is not as bad as premeditated murder, right? Because it's all about preventing this from happening again, right? However, if you are in a situation where you did something, let's say, for example, I'm driving my car and outside of my car falls a sandwich and the homeless person gets the sandwich and eats it and survives another day because of the sandwich that fell off of my car. Is he going to survive any less, or is he going to survive any more if I actually intentionally went to him and handed him the sandwich? Seems like the same thing got accomplished. Now, you might say that deeper, there's like a subliminal message. If you do it intentionally, it might cause somebody else to do something good. It might cause a chain reaction, right? But again, that is the effect, right? We're talking about the actual act of the good thing. Not necessarily does it make a difference if you intend. And that seems to be the way it works on Shabbos. It doesn't necessarily intend if you're eating a meal for the sake of Shabbos. Yeah? Doesn't make a difference. You ate the meal on Shabbos, you're good to go. Where else are we?
It's like if you Kiddush, you have to imbibe that you're eating except.
Again, says who? No. So I think maybe you misunderstood what you need to have intent when you're hearing Kiddush, why you need to have intent. You need to have intent that it's Kiddush. It's Kiddush, you need to have intent. No, you don't need to have in mind that you're going to be exempted from Kiddush. Unless, again, you could, if you have in mind, again, if you know that Kiddush is happening and you are intending that Kiddush is representing your sanctification of Shabbos, you're good to go. You don't have to know that you have an obligation and therefore try to exempt it from your obligation. No. The other way around might work. Meaning, if you deliberately intend not to fulfill your obligation, yeah, then that's different. Yeah. Anyways, let's continue. Weitergegangen. Oh, good. Savar Minah. Savar Minah is the next part of the Gemara, which is actually an interesting part of the Talmudic discussion. We just said a story. The story went simply as follows. Rav Avnuna says two things. Number one, he says that if you're eating on Shabbat, it is considered a Shabbat meal, whether or not you intend it to be a Shabbat meal. That's number one. And number two is he says that Shabbos has the power to, he brings from Rav that Shabbos has the power to establish food to be required for Meiser, right? And the same thing for Kiddush. Now the Talmud is going to analyze this to try to see how to use this statement to bring out a point that is not necessarily in this statement, to kind of analyze the statement and to turn it into something else, right? What is it? Savar Minah, they held as follows. Just like it establishes it for Kiddush, to make Kiddush, so too it will establish it to make Havdalah. Now, what would it mean if it establishes to make Havdalah? Says the Rashbam, just like if you didn't, when before a person makes Kiddush, are you allowed to eat? No, you're not allowed to eat before you make Kiddush on Friday night, right? Huh? Correct. You can't eat or drink before you make Kiddush Friday night. Yeah? Good. What else? The second Shabbos comes in, the second Shabbos begins, you're not allowed to eat until you make Kiddush. So we thought that this would be the same rule with Havdalah. That just like you need to stop eating when Shabbos starts, you need to stop eating when Shabbos ends. Right? After what? Oh, so according to the Gemara, as soon as it gets dark, according to the assumption, we're right now under an assumption. We're not telling you the rule yet. We're under the assumption that as soon as it gets dark, you can no longer eat on Shabbat. As soon as it gets dark, you cannot eat until you make the Havdalah ritual, right? Yeah. Amar Lahu Rav Amram. Rav Amram said as follows: Hochi Amar Rav, so said Rav. Likiddush kevas v'loy l'Havdalah kevas. That it establishes it for Kiddush but not for Havdalah. So meaning the Shabbos coming in has a form of an establishment, that it establishes the holy day of the Sabbath. But the other way around, it doesn't go. When Shabbos ends, or when it gets dark Saturday afternoon, when it gets dark, it's not automatically established that Shabbos is over, right? And therefore, you could continue eating, and that's actually the halacha till today. If you start a meal on Shabbat, you can continue it even after Shabbat ends. You don't have to stop. You're not allowed to start a meal after it gets dark, But if you start a meal before it gets dark, you can continue that meal until as long as you want. Because when Shabbos comes in, there's a form of an establishment. But when Shabbos comes out, it's not established no longer Shabbos. And by the way, many people, they keep Shabbos extra long. They extend Shabbos. And for them, there's a certain spiritual element of the Sabbath that continues right into the night. Yeah? Correct. Yes, as long as they're still in the same meal, they still say the blessing for Shabbos. So we would say, Shabbos as a. All right, that is the analysis of the Talmud. Yeah. Vahani mili, and when is these words referring to? He says this is only talking about stopping a meal, but you cannot start a meal. Meaning you do not have to stop your meal, but you cannot start a meal. And stopping not eating either to begin with is only referring to achila avo b'shtia loy, but you could drink. Ub'shtia nami loy amoran elo b'chamra v'shichra. And even when you're drinking, you could drink. You're not allowed to drink wine and beer, but you could drink water. Yeah, and that's why is it messed up? Why is it messed up? That's the whole point. Once it gets dark, you should stop drinking. We're talking about Shabbos going into Saturday night, from Saturday going into Saturday night. Now, if that's but that's after you make Havdalah. We're talking about till you make Havdalah. Yeah. Good? Any questions? Let's see if somebody wrote something over here. Hold on. What's that?
Is it considered Havdalah?
If
you just say,
it is not considered a proper Havdalah, you have to continue. I don't know why this is not. I made it bigger. It doesn't make it smaller. Anyways.
The story about Rabbi Hanani,
Yeah.
he took a break, right? That story?
The story is that the other rabbis wanted to take a break. Yeah. They wanted to literally stop the meal. They thought they were going to have to stop the meal, end the meal, make Kiddush and start a new meal. He says no. In other words, they just have to make Kiddush and that's it.
I'm not sure what you did. I don't know how to fix it.
I don't either know. It's weird. I can't read it. It's too small. All right. Good. Any questions? We pretty much finished what I wanted to cover for today. Tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem will continue. If there's any questions, we'll go for it. Im Yirtz Hashem. Im Yirtz Hashem. Somebody once told the Rebbe, Im Yirtz Hashem. You know what the Rebbe told him? Hashem, if God wants, God willing. The Rebbe was like, God wants, go for it. That's it. Good. I don't know what that is. Okay, we'll shut down the live feed, but we'll be back Bezrat Hashem tomorrow. Thanks for coming. If you didn't subscribe, and if you want to come learn with us live, like Mendel did today, then Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you here in the holy city of Tzfas. All right? Yes, and Mendel, you're still here. Don't run away too quickly.
Yeah.